Hi peeps. Welcome to Wednesday. I have one light off to keep my sanity in the dark, where it's more comfortable. You know, we like to be sheltered in dim lighting and sleepy darkness. I am going to make a quick lunch that I will be eating for dinner and lunch and dinner and lunch again. And I'm doing this because, one, I find that the live streams are a nice way to be more front-facing, which it brings me out of my own brain, cyclical banging sessions a little bit, and also I haven't really eaten vegetables at all this week, so I have some broccoli washed here. I was thinking about roasting them, but I really don't want to clean the trays, and I don't want to turn on the oven, and I don't want to be using olive oil like that right now today, so maybe I'm just going to munch on them while I make a tomato black-eyed pea stew of sorts with leftover bolognese. I simmered some black-eyed peas earlier today. I'm going to drain this. It just has salt in it and a cinnamon tree leaf. Your cinnamon is like basically tree bark, and Burlap Barrel sells cinnamon leaves, and they're actually pretty gorgeous, and they have the flavor of like a sweeter bay leaf. So I just decided to pop one in my pot of beans, and I opened the wrong can of tomatoes last time when I was making bolognese. So we're going to use that mistakenly opened can, toss it in with the leftover bolognese, add some beans in, eat it with some broccoli, and that's the plan. I have been eating nothing but cake and chocolate and nuts all week. It could be worse, but I don't feel good. I'm also on my cycle, so this is time for some more vegetables, less sugar, less fat. My cramps have been horrible, but not the worst. I think the stress is getting to me. I think the change in seasons is making everyone sick. I think fatigue and burnout is happening across the board for everyone, but especially those of us who have been paying attention to what's happening in Palestine and the ongoing violence and grief and just perpetual manufacturing of trauma for profit. So I just wanted to have space to talk about this and give everyone also a chance to think about it and sit with it and talk about it if you want. I think a lot of us are encouraged to just continue on with our lives as quickly as possible, as is evidenced by the fact that bereavement leave in the United States, which is, you know, a restful break from work after a loved one has passed away, is only 3 days as a general policy, if that, which is, I mean, in a nutshell, that's how capitalism works. It tells you to shut the fuck up and get back to being a production unit, and it's really hurtful because it numbs us, because we have to numb ourselves in order to survive under a system that doesn't really take into consideration what it means to be alive. It just takes into consideration how to make more of, and we don't really know the reason for why we're making more of. We're just told that this is what we're supposed to be doing and this is how we're going to get paid, and how we get paid is how we eat and how we live, and so we don't question it anymore. But if you ever feel broken down and hollow and confused and angry and frustrated, bursting at the seams, but also too tired to do anything about that bursting, and you're just kind of stomaching the punches and the injury and the bruises that happen along the way, it's gonna feel awful. And so, you know, I don't know how much talking about these things help anyone. Maybe for some people who are not used to this idea of getting in touch with their cognitive dissonance that we have to eat in order to stay alive under the system, maybe it's for them too negative, maybe it's bad vibes, maybe it's not good vibes only for them. But if that's the case, and that is the case for several viewers who have made it known to me through comments, I suggest you don't watch this live. But I'm not happy right now. I don't believe I should be happy right now. I think the circumstances that are happening right now are not conducive to feeling happiness. And that if I do feel happy, it could be genuine, but that's a very fleeting second of happiness, because if we are at all recognizing just how entrenched everything is, it's very hard to feel gratitude in a way, for what we're all participating in. And yes, lighting is quite dark. I actually encourage you to allow yourself to feel all the bad shit right now, because to feel any other way, I think, is just falling in line with the argument of capitalistic drives that tell you that you're wasting time feeling these feelings. And yeah, maybe you are wasting time feeling these feelings, but you know what's a bigger waste of time, and a bigger waste of resources, and a bigger waste of our humanity, and a bigger waste of our life, is to use up all those resources to make shit like weapons that then kill people and then make money for a very select few who then go on to die anyway. So if we see the greater picture here, everyone who participates in the system and feels happiness genuinely is to a certain degree delusional. And I'm not saying delusion is not a good thing, I'm just saying you are delusional. You have to, by default, buy into the delusion collectively in order to feel happiness from a system that only derives profit and gain from pain and misery and death. So with that in mind, I'm gonna make some tomato bean beef slop. Kimchi! Ooh, let us know. Let us know how that goes. Oh, and the map, the thumbnail map is all the events that are taking place today in the US that I helped map on Hour of Action. So if you go to tinyurl.com/Hour of Action and you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see all the in-person marches, protests, teach-ins, gatherings, die-ins, walkouts that are happening today. It's the International Day of Action for Palestine. It's another one. We are technically in a ceasefire, but Israel's not just bombing Palestine now. They've moved on to bombing other neighboring countries. So ceasefire has taken on a new definition, just like very many other words that Israel has decided to redefine. So if you want to participate in collective action today with your body and presence with others, there is a list of events that are ongoing today. Some of them may have passed since it's already 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but there are very many taking place still throughout the day. There are very many taking place after today. I encourage you to look them up. I encourage you to just go and witness one. You don't have to stay for the entire thing, but if you haven't been to one yet, witness one. I think it might bring a very different part of you out that may provide some form of relief if you are feeling depressed, if you are feeling hopeless, if you are feeling tired and sad. So, I gotta work on my recipe names? Nah. It's my brand now. What do you mean? You don't like my brand names? It's not my problem. Everybody's been getting sick, as far as I know. There's a lot of sickness going around. Everybody take care of yourselves. Know your limits, and if you choose to go beyond your limits, know and be conscious of that action, that decision. I think I have been pushing myself in an unsustainable way, but I've always been conscious of that fact that this is what I've been choosing to do. And it's not because I'm selfless or anything. It's just I went to a march in Prospect Heights in Brooklyn maybe a month ago where Norm Finkelstein was there and he gave a little talk. Most of those who showed up were students. And he basically said, we show up because we can't really bear to live any other way. We can't bear to witness this and not do something about it. And so at the end of the day, it's not altruism. At the end of the day, solidarity is not for other people. It both is and isn't. Solidarity is also for you, because you can't stand to live this way. If you can't stand to live this way, I guess congratulations. I guess you are blessed in a certain sense. I'm not going to say that I'm not frustrated by people who can find such detachment and peace at this time, but I guess I do envy them in a way. But to each their own, there is no forcing people into solidarity. I think it's a journey that they have to go on themselves to feel like it's a necessary component of their lives, and change will simply happen slower when there's lower solidarity, but there is still movement happening. I think solidarity can be a salve for those of us who are feeling it, and action in so many forms exists, and you simply have to decide that you want to take action, and then to see what options of actions are available to you and your accessibility needs and your capabilities, your time, your resources, everything is dependent on everything. So also encouraging everyone to not feel too bad, which is very easy to do in a time of witnessing emergencies and feeling like you want to put out the fire ASAP. But I had a talk with my therapist yesterday, and this fire has been going on for a long time, but we are now seeing it up close, maybe for the first time, just how intense it is, how widespread it is, and we're all rushing in to try to put it out. But this fire has been going on for decades, for centuries, heck, maybe even millennia, right? War has always been here. So just seeing what we can do, and wanting to do it is important. Whether or not we have the immediate impact and effects that we really, really want, to the point where we think we really, really need it, that's out of our control. But what you can do is what you must do. And what you must do is dependent on what you need. And so I think the first step to building solidarity is really having a very honest conversation with yourself and checking in with yourself and seeing where it is that you're hurting, seeing how this is affecting you, seeing which parts of you are being torn down in this, are being deconstructed in this, are falling apart in this. It's kind of like a body scan, but on top of the body scan, extending it into like a soul scan, you know? Because I think, yes, our bodies are breaking down. Yes, we are feeling the physical manifestations of burnout, but there is also gradually over time, ever since birth, being born into this system of profit, a breakdown of the soul, a detachment from our feelings, and a rejection of our reactions and instincts, and forcing ourselves to fit into labels and boxes and names and courtesies and prescriptions. And it's hard to be in touch in a lot of ways. So, you know, we do what we can. We do what we must. And that may look different for everyone. So do you, girl. Do you. Here's my leftover bolognese. I was eating this defrosted yesterday, cold, unheated, on top of my sweet potato cake. It was truly not that bad, but it felt very sad, you know? Cold, congealed, ground beef on a sweet cake. Not the worst thing. Actually kind of delicious. But also, just the lack of preparation and thought that went into it, I think, was the context of feeling absolutely trash about myself and where I was. And that is okay, too, because doing that and witnessing that and, like, observing myself doing that and being complacent enough about my status while doing that showed me how slumpy I currently am. It was a symptom of my condition. So yeah, check in with yourself, you know? Again, it was not bad. It's just really sad. Defrosting cold ground beef sauce and eating it while cold and slightly frozen on top of a cold slab of sweet potato cake. It's not terrible. In fact, I think somebody could put that on a menu somewhere, heat it up, and present it a little bit schmooshed with herbs and a sauce maybe, but I don't think it was people at Delish that really made fun of my lunches, although definitely they probably did think I was a complete trash panda. But when I was very briefly in social work doing Hurricane Sandy relief in Coney Island, my coworkers would make fun of the fact that I always brought in like a 2-cup Tupperware of oatmeal. I don't know what was wrong about me bringing in oatmeal. I really liked oatmeal, but they were just like, when are you going to eat real food? But, hey. think it's kind of bonkers that we expect people to be okay, you know, and that we have to like make sure they're constantly okay. Like, we need a break from being okay too. We can't always be on, especially in times when we are witnessing other people being subjected to absolute horrendous violence. Like, it's not okay to be okay right now. It's not only okay to not be okay, I almost feel like it's not okay to be okay right now. You know what I mean? I know that that's not like mentally healthy or whatever, but how much disassociation do you need in order to feel okay witnessing that? I have friends who are concerned for me, who have been telling me, like, yo, maybe you need to pull back from participating in the Palestinian cause, projects for it. Maybe you need to, like, just give yourself some time to rest. And I'm like, you're not wrong, but also, you know what would make my life a lot better and easier, and maybe make your life and other people's life a lot better, maybe not easier, but a lot better, is that instead of telling me that I need to pull back, is that you join in. What is keeping you from joining in to help me do this thing? And what is the impetus that drives you to tell me to make sure I'm okay? How can I be okay when I can see clearly that, like, we're all not okay? I guess we're just fully invested and bought into the idea that we have to fake it till we make it, and that extends to even witnessing the breakdown of not only ideologies like religion and government, but also a breakdown in logic, reasoning, and facts, you know? Oh man. Your very humble lunches were routinely dumped into the bin by school bullies. Like, you say that, you frame it with an LOL, but those stay with us, right? And those are formative, and those events informed our future actions and who we became, and our coping mechanisms and our defense mechanisms and our ways of framing and thinking about the world and our place in it. And, you know, getting our lunches thrown into the bin by school bullies pales in comparison to what's happening now. The bullying, if we can call it that, that's happening now, but, like, that still matters. That happened to you when you were a kid. It was violent, even though you weren't, like, physically really hurt by it, I hope. But sometimes psychological hurt does even more damage than physical hurt. Sometimes psychological hurt, not being visible, is even harder to heal from than a physical bruise. Yeah, the LOL is sarcastic, but you see, we default to the coping mechanism of framing traumatic incidents like that with a shrug, I'ma laugh it off intro. I understand the sarcasm in it, but the sarcasm also comes from a place of, like, acknowledgement of pain and discomfort, right? So cool. Thank you for sharing that. But I'm processing all of this. I'm also processing my physical burnout. I'm processing my increasing sense of fatigue that is now intertwining with hopelessness, that has always existed, but, you know, the reaction and combination of two feelings that are very destabilizing, is a 1-2 punch whammy. And yeah, Blue Caribou, I think I totally agree. People do have limited capacity for caring about people they don't directly know, and I think that comes out of our schooling of individualism and our schooling of, the concept of scarcity of resources and capitalism, and creating this detachment that is our default now, which is all just foundational ingredients for deconstructing and actively destroying and preventing solidarity from being built. I understand why it happens. I also participate in that sort of limited capacity because I think we're all a product of our surroundings, but talking about it and having awareness about it will, I think, change the way that our brains format these conditionings, and hopefully over time we can get used to caring not only about those very near and dear and related to us, but also caring about how other people that we don't know yet are affected, because we're all going to be affected by that same treatment. It's a framework that none of us can escape, and so I think until more of us feel the impulse to change it, we're all going to be just stuck in the status quo. It's not enough that 5% of people want to change it, but 5% is better than 1%. And it might not be enough that 10% of people want to change it, but 10% is better than 5%. And I was talking to a new friend that I met at a banner drop, the banner drop that I put up in my shorts the other day. And he was saying how, over a decade ago, people would show up to marches and protests for the Palestinian cause in double digits. So just like 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 people. But now we're seeing hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands and maybe even more people show up to these protests. So he's gotten a bigger picture view of the arc of change. It's taking a long time, and people are still dying every time violence erupts and every time oppression is enacted upon through violent means, but there is change happening. So I hope, knowing that support for change is growing, nourishes us in some way, to neutralize some of that hopelessness. That is inevitable, of course. We all want to see the suffering stop ASAP. It's not realistic, unfortunately, but it may be more realistic as we start to build more solidarity and more support, as people start to see that solidarity is not for other people, but for all of us. Because if we really get in touch with the parts of ourselves that our systems have told us to mute, to repress, to suppress, to delete, to reject, to deny the existence of, maybe we will find that health in all aspects require those voices to be brought back, resurrected, supported, and nurtured. Maybe so many of us are feeling this depression and this anxiety and this hate for the world and its current format because we know that deep down inside we don't match with what we've been told to be. So how do we get that to match again? How do we bring ourselves together again? Bring ourselves together again, and then bring ourselves together again. It's a long-term lifestyle. So you really do have to find the reason for why you want it before you can want it. The reason is very important, and the reason will be personal to you, but the reason is also collective to all of us. And I just want to say that sometimes we find it hard to take action because we don't know what the right thing to do is. And I just want to say that there is no one right way to go about finding yourself and your community and your solidarity and your whys. It takes all forms, and it takes all skills and all talents and all orientations, and all of them are correct as long as you are finding yourself and being in dialogue with yourself and being honest with yourself. We all think in different ways, we all act in different ways, we were all brought up in different cultures with different resources and privileges and different philosophies and beliefs and ideologies. How do we make all of those come together in a way that we don't have to struggle against ourselves? How do we make all of those come together so that we don't have to struggle against others? How do we make ourselves understand that no matter what we do, as long as we're not betraying ourselves, it is for solidarity? We're gonna go in with the beefy now. Yep, exactly. If one person can give 10K to charity, wonderful. If 10K people can give $1, same result. Progress comes in all forms. It doesn't have to be perfect to be good. And that is something that I was exposed to in farm school, this concept of, you know, progress, not perfection. Like, the idea that you have to be perfect in order to do anything is this system's way of telling you to not do anything different from what you're being told to do. Perfectionism is very much detrimental when you are aiming for it always. Perfectionism is an ideal, just like democracy is an ideal. It doesn't actually exist. It can't actually manifest ever. Because it's abstract and it's not real. But we've made it real, just like we've made the concepts of race and gender and political ideology real. But it's even as real as it is and has become by means of human structures and laws and systems of punishment, it's not, because we can even see that America, who likes to say it's a democracy, is not a democracy. How is it a democracy when 2/3 of this country support a ceasefire and only like 5 or 7% of the Congress members support a ceasefire? That's not a direct democracy. That's not even like a true republic in a lot of ways. It's not reflective of the population anymore. The governing body does not respond to the population it's meant to represent. So democracy is fake. Communism is also fake. Some countries have gotten closer to the ideal of communism than others, but having come out of China myself, having both of my parents' perspectives and histories and experiences taken into consideration, I don't know if any of these ideals can be ever achieved in full. So we can't strive for perfection. It's an idea, but we can strive to do things that don't actively make us feel horrible about ourselves. And I think if you can talk to yourself without the chatter of policing that has been handed down to us, you might be able to find what it is that will actually bring you closer to fulfillment. And yeah, I agree with that comment, Deborah. Deborah says, I absolutely think it's okay to be okay and not okay with what's happening in the world. If I let it consume me, I wouldn't be any good to myself or my family that I love so dearly. I agree with that. And I think usually binaries are pretty abstract and false in themselves too. I think we may identify with one end of the binary more than the other end of the binary at any given time, but over time we will fluctuate between the two poles anyway. It's always a spectrum, right? So I can feel more okay now, but maybe at like 9:48 p.m. I'll be like, fuck, I hate this world, and then I'll have a breakdown. And then that won't feel very okay. But in the context of the day, I go through my ups and downs. And you know, that's just how the day goes. It's also very subjective. What is okay and what is not okay? I'm living here. I have a bed to sleep on. I'm really fucking warm. I have access to water and food. I'm not lacking for any of the essentials. My mental health, though, is really, really, really bad. For other people who are actually suffering through physical violence and deprivation of natural resources and, you know, essentials like food and water, I'm doing super okay. But for people who aim to have mental health excellence always, or for people who, like my family and friends, want to see me not depressed all the time, they're gonna think that I'm not okay. But those are just subjective takes on what's okay and what's not okay. It almost becomes irrelevant the more you think about it, right? So and that's where my nihilism comes out of. I think someone said on a previous live, they left a comment about like my nihilism doesn't do anything good. Which, you know, I've gotten that brand of comments before, but my nihilism lets me rest in my restlessness. It is a reprieve under chaos. It is this feeling that even if nothing makes sense, it's okay. Because yes, nothing does make sense because nothing is truly solid. And it allows me to have the space to be dealing with contradictions within myself and contradictions around me and contradictions in my environment and just contradictions at every single layer of existence. Nihilism for me is a drug of sorts that I'd like to believe is true, because if nihilism is a manifestation of a universal truth, then I can rest more easily knowing that no matter how much pain we manufacture, that ultimately it is empty. It is all kind of just a play that we've put on for ourselves. Nihilism is also why I don't understand the desire and impulse to have more children. You know, it's just such a confusing world that I don't even understand. How can I introduce someone else to be confused by something that I haven't even gotten clarity on? I think about this, I think about how my mental state and my, you know, wellness deterioration affects those who care about me, and I think about how thankful I am that I don't have children that look up to me, that I have to feel responsible for, that I have to put on a brave face for, that I have to essentially kind of lie to in order to make sure that they're not hurting because I'm hurting. That's just not something that I'm capable of doing. I can't lie to myself about this. I don't want to lie to myself about this. And I almost want to encourage everyone else to not hide how bad they're suffering from all of this, because the more we hide it, the more taboo it becomes, and the more taboo it becomes, the more we have to sustain the cycle of pretending that everything's okay and that we should be okay, and that if you're not okay, then you're the problem that needs to get solved. In a way, I almost feel like grieving loudly and publicly and unashamedly is a way of building solidarity, is a way of rejecting the rejection of ourselves and our nature. So much of what we do, so much of what we're encouraged to do is unnatural. And I think that takes a toll on us. And it's okay that you have kids and you feel horrible for having them. Like, it's okay, because I'm sure you're not the only person who feels that way, and that's a totally okay way to feel. I don't think we understood really what we were getting into being born into this life and this world and this society, and being told all the things that we've been told, all the contradictions that we've been fed, that we have to keep down in our stomachs, even though they're just like gurgling. It's gurgling. It's either coming out on top or coming out on bottom, but it's coming out. But society tells us we have to hold it in, right? We can't just vomit everywhere or shit everywhere. We have to hold it in until we're in our private sanctities of the abomination of humanity, to let it all out. We have to take it to therapy where there's confidentiality between therapist and patient. We have to do it in private. Why though? What does that actually achieve? To do this painful work in private. What does that mean, that we've been told that the right thing to do is to shield it? Tomatoey goodness is good. It's good. What I want to do now is let it continue simmering while I plop in some of the stems chopped up so that it can steam, and then hopefully in 10 minutes I can eat some of these stems. And like, don't be too hard on yourselves for your quote unquote personal choices, because at the end of the day, we're all just product of our upbringing and our environments, right? And I was talking with a couple of friends about this topic. You know, like, who are we outside of what we've been trained to believe in and trained to think? Like, that's the bulk of our existence, is other people's imprint on us. But now that we're old enough and cognizant enough of how it works, we can choose who we surround ourselves with. We can choose who we get impressed by. And so whatever you've already chosen is okay. Like, we do the best that we can at any given time, even if it doesn't feel like it, even if we come to regret it later. That's just the choice that we made at that time. We're not gods. We can't really see into the future. But with every choice that we make, we learn. And so we're still learning. I'm still learning. And learning is often painful, and learning often comes with regret of past choices because it's new information. And new information changes the way that we view ourselves and the world and everything. So I think this just means that you're learning. And now you continue to learn, having all these new thoughts, doing all these new things. The thumbnail picture that you just got is the map that's currently on tinyurl.com/hour of action, which is a website that I've pinned to the top of this chat. It is a list mapped of actions taking place today all over the US that are for the International Day of Shutting It Down for Palestine, educational events, marches, protests, die-ins, all of that variety. Several different states and cities, several different kinds of events. I'm encouraging folks to check it out. tinyurl.com/hour of action also currently has an archive of 30 days of education regarding topics related to the history of Palestine and how we got to where we are today. It is a purely volunteer-powered resource site. The two people who started this Hour of Action site are taking a hiatus because they need funding. They literally sank their entire days in the past month collecting these resources, presenting it on the site. It was a full-time project for them, basically, to pull all of this educational shit together and to offer it to everyone for free, that they now need to make rent money. It's coming up on December and they don't have money to do that because they decided to spend their time culling the resources. So there is also a donation box if you feel so inclined, if you want to support them financially, economically, so that they can continue doing this sort of work. But even if you can't, please check out the work that they provided to everyone for free. Don't let their work go to waste, and don't feel any shame if you can't support them financially. I think just making use of their resources is awesome enough. So it's there for you all. It's there for me as well. I haven't gotten through all of the information because there is so much to learn, but it's cool just to have it in one place like that. And I think we have to be mindful of the language that we use to teach kids with, I think up until very recently, I was still thinking about solidarity as a form of charitable action. And it's taken me very, very, very many years to come to this point where I'm just starting to realize that we can't frame it as a charitable action. We frame it as an action that sustains us personally. And it's a nutrient that becomes essential when we realize just how much we are all embroiled in this injustice, and how it continues to affect us in very invisible ways because we've gotten so used to being used to it. It's become normalized to just suck it up and do it, and do everything that betrays what we actually want to do. The amount of friends that I have who are currently miserable at their jobs, the amount of friends I have who can't leave the jobs that make them miserable on a daily basis because they need the money, they need the health insurance, they're scared of what will happen to them if they leave that job that makes them miserable. The fact that we've created a system where we only sustain ourselves by allowing ourselves to be miserable all the time is like so fucked up, right? That's pretty depressing. Oh, this pot just burnt my beef. That's okay. I turned the heat off. It'll be okay. Anyway, I can't stay on for very long. I have to go feed a friend's cat today. I'm also learning about the potential for tax strikes, or at least tax resistance, the different tiers of participation that can happen. Thinking about, thinking back to that moment when I was still in grade school and they were teaching us like Boston Tea Party shit, the whole no taxation without representation shit, like, do you feel represented? And if you don't feel represented, how are you going to tell them that they're not representing you and that that's not okay while they take your money? I'm not feeding Fred. I'm feeding a cat called Tuna. Tuna's a very lovely cat. I've met many different cats over the years, and they all have such different personalities, which was definitely not something that I understood until I had cats in my life. So that's cute. That's our wonderful creatures. Some of them are nasty, just like people. But yes, happy Wednesday, everyone. Happy International Day of Action for Palestine. Happy awakening. Happy mobilization. Happy education. Happy being in community with each other. Happy being in touch with yourself and in community with yourself. And it's totally okay to have different opinions within your own brain as well. It may be confusing, but allow yourself to have competing thoughts and give space to both of them. And when you feel comfortable enough, maybe they start talking to each other. And maybe once that dialogue starts, you can start to feel a lot of acceptance coming from within that allows you to reframe a lot of different perspectives in a more holistic way. It is okay to not agree with yourself. Sometimes, I don't know how we expect everyone to feel like they constantly make sense in their own head when we've been fed so many different competing narratives of what we should be and how we should live. So allow yourself different perspectives, and allow yourself to be confused, and allow yourself to feel the ups and the downs. But at the end of the day, I hope you continue doing stuff that supports you, not the version of society, not the version of you that society wants you to be for its own purposes, but the version of you that you feel most aligned with, not out of immediate necessity, but out of a long-term view of who you are and the lineage of you. Because I've realized after visiting grandma for 2 years straight that, like, inevitably I am parts of my mom and parts of grandma and parts of my dad and just a hodgepodge of mush of all the people that have come into make me. So acknowledge it, all of it. You're still married to Gary? I didn't know that. Gary, did you know that you were married still to Jason? Hello, Nowco. Hi, everyone. I like how everyone's popping up just as I'm about to end the stream. Hello. What up? Nice to see you all. You need to make money for yourself. We are still in this system that requires you to make money for yourself. You can feel guilty about it, but at the end of the day, you're gonna have to do it. And if your content makes you money, then that's probably better than you doing other shit that's much less ethical in the grand scheme of things. I guess that's one way you can comfort yourself. I don't know if that helps. I hope that did. Well, I'll try to stay on for 10, 12-ish minutes more, just so I can eat some of this shit that I just cooked. But I do have to go soonish. I have to finish up a few newsletters and run to my friend's cat. What is the mush? It's defrosted canned tomatoes and freshly cooked black-eyed peas with salt and cinnamon tree leaf and a little bit of leftover beef bolognese, and that's it. I don't even think I seasoned it any further, so we'll see if it needs seasoning. Oops. Oh. I didn't unload the dishwasher yet. I guess I'll do that too. What is a good tea to try? I don't know what you like. I can't possibly give you that advice without knowing what you like. fruity. I don't really like herbal teas, so I can't give you any recommendations on that. I do like some peach flavored green teas though. I would just recommend that you go on like Harney and Sons website and see what strikes your fancy. I haven't really had like a bad tea from them. It's all pretty good quality, but it's totally dependent on your tea tastes. If there's a tea that you've liked from the past, maybe I can tell you what is similar. But I don't tend to like fruity teas. I tend to like them pretty bitter. Yellow. I bought that for my dad. I think he was trying to like have some non-caffeinated stuff, but yeah, I don't like chamomile tea, so I probably wouldn't have liked that either if I tried it. But that's not because of the tea quality, it's just more so of not my kind of tea to like. That is a really good tip. It's the Chinese way of brewing tea actually, is you wash the tea leaves by brewing it very quickly for like 5 to 10 seconds max, and then dumping out that first flush almost. My mom used to do it, and she used to tell me it was because she wanted to wash away the dirt on the tea leaves. I have tea that's been sitting in my teapot for like 3 days now. Liz, I really like grainy flavors, not texturally grainy, but like grain-like. So I like genmai cha, which is green tea mixed with toasted rice. It gives me a very cozy breakfast porridge feeling, but not American breakfast porridge, like Asian breakfast porridge, more rice-based. It just feels very comforting, and it makes me feel held. It's very warming and soothing and calming. Mild caffeine buzz from the green tea. I like buckwheat tea. If you like caffeine free completely, buckwheat tea is literally just toasted buckwheat, and it has a very kind of a toasted taste. I'm losing my words, but it's very rich and earthy in a sweet way. It feels almost like a Buddhist's version of hot cocoa, if that makes any sense. Probably not. And when I drink genmai cha, I eat the rice kernels after they've soaked into the tea. It's almost like you get a little snack with your tea. Making dal soon for extra yum, I use extra fat, always, and salt, or seasoning, but salt, for sure. grain-like taste is best described as a starchly sweet toastiness. It smells like you buttered rice while steaming it on the stove. And then somebody baked it into a cracker. And now you get to drink it in a clear, light, liquid form. Did any of you get any palpable taste sensations from that description? Guess not. Hi, Germany. Alright folks, thank you for hanging out with me. My cramps are kicking in, so I'm gonna go sit at my desk and rest up for a little bit before I had to head to my friend's cat care. But you take care and check in with yourself and align if you can. Align yourself. See you next time.